you're writing about. So for a compare and contrast essay, there's different ways of organizing, right? So for a compare and contrast essay, if I'm writing, let's say, about the anatomy and physical structure of hippos versus elephants, I can either talk about hippos and their anatomy first, and then elephant anatomy, and then hippo physical structure, and then elephant physical structure. So I go by the category, right? So in this case, I go by physical structure and anatomy, or I can go by animal. So I can first explain the hippo's structure and anatomy first, and then go on to the elephant structure and anatomy second. So there are different ways to organize your essay to suit your purpose. It's ultimately up to you. The second type for descriptive and procedural essay, these essays, they should be more linear, right? If you're doing descriptive writing or if you're doing a procedural essay, you should let me know the situation that you're in first. So you describe your surrounding, right? Or explain the steps, and it should follow a pretty linear progression. So this is like the thing that you guys were doing for the descriptive essay, where I talked to you guys about needing to provide more sensory context as to where you are to situate me as the reader into your scene. Is because when you're writing a descriptive essay, you want to first let me know where you're at. And then after I know where you're at, then you can do kind of that, then you can move on to that description and that thing, like, I guess that idea that you're trying to convey. So analytical writing is a bit simpler, I guess, compared to these essays. So for analytical writing, usually your thesis will say, oh, I argue for points 1, points 2, and points 3. And then conversely, what I'll do is, and then afterwards, your essays will just follow that point. So your first body paragraph will be about point 1, your second body paragraph will be about point 2, and then your third body paragraph will be about point 3. That's usually the safe structure that guarantees it'll make sense. So for our purposes of writing an essay, just follow this general format where you have an introduction, so a thesis statement, and with a thesis statement, and then a body paragraph that supports your thesis statement with reasons, and then lastly, a conclusion that kind of summarizes everything, but also additionally provides me with more insight on the topic you're talking about. Right. So the conclusion shouldn't just be a simple restating of your thesis statement. It could be, however, the best conclusions grants me additional insight. So the thesis statement argues for this thing, and your body paragraph supports it, and then your conclusion says, yes, it makes the old man suffer. So in this case, you say the old man is the protagonist, or like he's like kind of like a main character, right? So what's interesting about the story is, it's a lot of things is interpretive, and it's not really there's no definitive right answer. So and the interesting thing is, if you view the story from the old man's perspective, and if you view the story from the family's perspective, and if you view, it's different. Yes, sorry.
It kind of depends on who's what perspective you're reading from, and what opinion you have. I guess if you're kind of empathetic of the old man, you think that the family is kind of like the antagonist and everyone else is the protagonist. If you really like the crabs, you think the crabs is the protagonist and that everyone else is the antagonist besides the old man, I guess. The family.
Yeah, it's good. So it depends on the perspective that you're viewing, right? So at least if I were to do a really quick summary, if you view this from the old man's perspective, it's he falls down to this house, he gets mistreated, but eventually he gets enough strength and he flies away, right? It's kind of like a good ending. If you view it from the family's perspective, it's also kind of a good ending, because then, an old man falls down and they don't know what to do with him, but they do earn a lot of money consequent to him being there, right? And if you view it from just the abstract notion of the town, so let's say we view it as like the town as a human being, initially it's dying, right? There's a lot of rain, there's a lot of floods, people there are have a lot of problems, but at the end, it seemingly all kind of dissipates a little bit, right? So there's a lot of ways you can view at the story. Although it's very sad and it's very bleak, the message that it promotes isn't intrinsically
to the belief that he's not an angel. But due to this this goodwill that he has, because he's helping people, like the person who's counting her heartbeats and the insomnia girl, the guy, he might be an angel. He's probably an angel, and his presence would probably be a miracle.
Okay, why do you say probably?
Because it's really rare that a person with like wings growing on their body
Mm-hmm.
like just comes out of nowhere.
Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah.
So you guys explain. You guys, I guess, I'm assuming Sophia still can't speak. So wait, but can she hear what we're saying right now, or no?
Sophia is here.
Yeah. So wait, then can she speak right now, or
Yes.
yeah? Do you have any thoughts on this?
I think like he is an angel, kind of, even
Okay.
though he like doesn't really fill the typical, I guess, appearance and what people think angels are. He's
Mhm.
like, an angel because like it's like very rare to see a person with wings just randomly.
Mm-hmm.
And like, however, I feel like maybe he's like, I don't know why, but I think he might be like an outcast because like normally angels, I think they would be like kind of symbolizes purity and happiness and like just joyful things in general. But like he kind of made the place seem more gloomy and I guess in a negative way.
Okay, that's good. So these are all very, very interesting points, right? So one thing that I, at least viewing all these questions I have for you guys is why? Like, why does an angel have to appear pretty, right? Like none of us, like in reality, actually seen an angel. So where did this assumption of an angel actually have to appear pure and pretty come from? Yes, Emily?
I mean, in the Bible, they say like the angels defend heaven and they're like really good warriors. But so why does warriors have to be pretty?
That's interesting. Okay, yeah. So the Bible says angels are warriors. Doesn't have to be pretty, right? So it's kind of interesting because we all have this preconceived notion that angels are supposed to be pretty. Yeah, Chanel, okay, Chanel, you answer first.
Sure, okay. So like I feel like this assumption comes from the fact that heaven is really like pure and clean and like this like utopia place. And since like if you work somewhere, you're probably gonna like have a personality that represents it. So since heaven's a really like pure
yeah. Keep going.
Since heaven's like a really pure place, then we would probably expect the people who work to protect heaven to be really pure and beautiful and like heaven-like.
Yeah, these are all very valid points, right? So because the angel supposedly comes from heaven, we view that the angel is supposed to be pure. That is interesting. So it's okay. So these are all very interesting points that are good, right? So then I guess you can say, at least for me, I found it weird that people have so many, I guess, assumptions of what an angel should be, given, yes, there are scriptures and there are texts from the Bible, and there are assumptions of heaven that does talk about angels and what they should look like. However, no one has actually seen an angel in person, right? And what Janelle mentioned is actually a pretty interesting point because a person is supposed to reflect the environment they're surrounding in. So an angel from heaven is expected to look clean and pure. However, this angel is not. He is the antithesis of what you believe an angel to be, right? He's dirty, he's not clean. He brings a sad atmosphere to the town. Now, what I want to ask you guys is that the consequence of him? Like, do we know if he's like going directly from heaven to earth, or if he's been on earth for some time? Do we know that information or do we not know? So we don't know, right? So ultimately, we don't know whether the angel has been on earth for a long time, right? So could his like, I guess you can say, could him having a ruined appearance and having a ruined physical like being be consequent to the environment of the earth? Because one thing that I found really interesting is you mentioned how the angels are supposed to reflect their environment. So what I find interesting is that in the very beginning, the newborn child has temperature. So the child has a fever, right? And the angel comes, and then suddenly the angel also gets the fever. But as the angel gets the fever, the child recovers from the fever, right? That's one thing I found interesting from this. Let me find where. Wait, let me move this. So fever. See? So after the angel, so the child has temperature all night, right? So then they grab the angel out. And then after a short time, the child woke up without a fever and with a desire to eat. So the child is cured of his fever. However, the angel starts to get sick, right? Here. He turns on the, let's see. Where did it go? See? Okay, I cannot find it right now. This is actually kind of depressing. But yes, but then the angel gets the fever that the child stops getting, right? So it's kind of interesting that Janelle mentioned they reflect the environment they're in, because the angel seemingly takes away a bad thing from the town. Like the town had a sick child, and the angel takes that away, but himself becomes sick. Yes, Sunny?
I think I have like a really wild guess.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think in this story, the setting is that when Andrew is good and they come to like a gloomy place or a sick child, they get the fever or things that were negative, and then they become demon.
Oh, okay.
They
become a
transfer to
demon.
demon because they get the negative thing from
Okay.
when they're angel. They bring luck, but they bring their self to a bad situation. That's a wild guess.
Yeah, okay. That's a pretty interesting guess, right? So you want to find, if you want to argue that in your essay, then you have to write evidence supporting that, right? So for example, you can mention how the initial color of the angel's wings are different to when he first came and when he left. However, it's unclear what his color of his wings are in the very beginning because, you know, he's sick and they're all falling off, right? His feathers are all falling off anyway. So it's hard. But yeah, it's an interesting observation. It's an interesting theory. So your essays, so I guess if we wrap around back to the main question, your essays will try to represent this idea, right?